Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk about what is going on in the city of Seattle because they have run out of money for the so-called asylum seekers. They can't afford to hotel them any longer. Federal assistance is not coming. And guess what? Many of these migrants have decided that they're not happy about this, and they started to take over schools and parks, camped out there, and declaring that they will not leave until their demands for better accommodations are actually met. Now, we're going to talk about this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody signed up over on actualjusticeword.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that on Saturday, April 27th in Austin, Texas, I will be at Minds Fest. Link to tickets top of the description. Promo code AJW for 20% off.
Demonstrators demanded action from Seattle City Council and interrupted Tuesday's meeting. This ended with 6 arrests for criminal trespass. Asylum seekers and their advocates showed up, calling on the city to provide more money for housing in other King County cities. At one point, City Council asked security to clear the room.
So one of the things that I try to emphasize over and over again on this channel is that the people who are migrating to our country are not all bad, not all evil, or anything of the sort. The problem is our asylum system. The problem is people like President Joe Biden, who told these people to surge to the border.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And the fact that a lot of these people who are economic migrants are abusing that asylum system, and it's costing the taxpayer millions upon billions of dollars in order to house and feed these people. If you're an economic migrant, you want to come into the United States, I understand, but you have to go through the proper channels for that. You can't just claim asylum, and when you skip over a bunch of different countries on your way to the United States border and you don't claim asylum there, we should not take your claim seriously.
Our physical safety is being threatened by the actions of the demonstrators outside banging on the windows, which could easily get broken, and we will have a mob scene.
No action was taken at the Seattle city level, but there is new funding coming in for asylum seekers.
But what's going on here is bad people engaging in poor behavior. They're banging on the city hall outside, threatening these people, demanding that these migrants get housed. Now, to be clear, it is kind of ambiguous of how many of the protesters out there are migrants versus leftists. It appears by some reporting, the more aggressive protesters are in fact the leftist protesters demanding more welfare for the migrants on their behalf. And this is actually similar to something that we saw in New York, where we had an activist demanding that the migrants be housed on the taxpayer dime in luxury apartments in Billionaires Row. Let me play that clip for you if you don't remember it.
Volunteer advocates argue the city should put these migrants in some of the most expensive pieces of real estate in the world.
He could have easily, along with Governor Hochul, opened up all the vacant luxury apartments. We are on 57th Street right now. This is Billionaires Row. Half of the super towers on this street are empty.
Of course, that begs the question, who would pay for all those luxury apartments?
But regardless, the fact of the matter is, this is a predictable situation when you have limited government resources, and these cities have to bend over backwards to a surge of migrants that should not be here in the United States of America in the first place. Now, to be clear, this situation had been brewing for a long time. The city of Seattle and the surrounding areas in Kings County in the state of Washington have been struggling to pay the bills for these people a lot as of late. And in fact, the only reason this is coming up now and not a month and a half ago is due to the fact that an anonymous donor appears to have paid for a certain amount of days of hotel stay.
The clock is ticking once again. Dozens of migrants have 8 days left in a Kent hotel, thanks to an anonymous donor, before they're potentially back out on the streets camping in tents.
For these illegal migrants so that they could fend off this problem in the more brutal cold months back in February.
For more than a year.
I want to ask people, where do we go? Where do the families go?
So yeah, you had somebody put up the money, they ended up running out, but now you have all these different migrants that are saying, where do we go? Where should we be if we're not going to be able to stay here, if we're not going to be able to stay in this hotel just because you in Kings County have ran out of money, and your plan to shift the migrants to various different points in Kings County is no longer tenable because everybody's out of money? And the answer to that question is to your home country.
Migrants from South America and Africa have been moved across King County. Most of them started at this Tequila church, which quickly became overwhelmed.
I want folks to know that there's a crisis here.
A patchwork of funding brought some of the asylum seekers to this Kent hotel, but the threat of eviction loomed.
There are families here. There are kids here.
Which is how 140 Venezuelan asylum seekers ended up spending Tuesday night on tennis courts outside of Garfield Community Center in Seattle.
Now look, I understand that people have ethnic pride, I understand that people are waving their flags, but to me, it's kind of a little bit odd for you to beg the taxpayer to cut benefits for average everyday citizens, things that people rely on, not fill potholes, in order to service you, in order to put you up in a hotel when you're holding up a foreign flag. Like somehow you're entitled to this because you originated in the nation of Venezuela. But like I said, they put up $50,000 in order to cover the cost for these individuals for a little while. But I just want to point out that this is also a fact that they're paying premium hotel rates, because $50,000 for 11 days, that is sure a lot of money for very few days for these migrants. And considering hotel stays in places like the Quality Inn should normally run you around $100 per night, if even that much, especially you should get a discount if you're buying in bulk. What we're seeing here is that the city of Seattle, Kings County as a whole, all these different cities are paying a premium, much like New York City, for these low quality hotels in order to house these migrants. So they've been incinerating money on this process, which accelerated this disaster even further. But in reality, the issue at hand is that we have to divert these resources to them in the first place because they're not citizens. They are defrauding the asylum system. They should not be here. They should go through the proper immigration channels. When you allow such a broad amount of law breaking to occur, like has happened in the United States of America since Joe Biden has been elected, these are the predictable consequences of that. Also, a lot of these places consider themselves sanctuary cities. They didn't want to deport anybody for anything. They offered all these benefits to migrants, and wouldn't you know it, migrants flooded the area, they overwhelmed their resources, and now they're pissed that they're being cut off.
Our values as a city is to be welcoming.
Hamdi Mohammed leads Seattle's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. She believes
our immigration system is broken. Our immigration laws makes the situation really complex for states and cities to respond in the way that we would like.
Because these people are seeking asylum, Hamdi says the benefits they can receive are limited.
For asylum seekers, there are a lot of federal policies in place that restricts governments, local jurisdictions from being able to provide the same services that they would provide to someone who is in a refugee legal status.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't agree with this at all. She's saying, oh, because these people are here on asylum, their benefits are too limited, as if the issue right here is that they're getting too much from the taxpayer. Again, your county is going broke. Every city is running out of money in order to house these migrants. You just had to take $50,000 in order to cover their stays in a Quality Inn hotel for just 11 days. And you're talking about how the issue is you're not spending enough on them. You're too limited in what you can spend on them in terms of welfare programs. That's absolutely not true. 10th Amendment powers to states and local governments give them broad authority to craft policy on a local level. That's why some states and some cities are sanctuary cities or sanctuary states and offer their welfare benefits to illegal migrants, to these asylum fraudsters in the first place. So she's just trying to shift blame around, but in reality, you drew them here with magnets, you promised them welfare benefits, they surged to your left-wing cities. Some of them were bussed by Governor Greg Abbott, but let's be honest, the overwhelming majority of them came for the perks that you were offering, and you couldn't live up to your promises. Your generosity drew these people from the third world into your cities, and now they're camping out in the streets because you didn't predict the most predictable outcome that you can possibly have. You tax your population to oblivion in order to cover this, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself, but more importantly, you should take some accountability for your own actions. Now, I also think there should be some accountability for these nonprofit organizations that, as we've covered on this channel before, not only get them into this country, but also fly them all around this country, because there were actually 6 of them up backing these migrants in order to get them into Seattle. Of course, they ended up on the outskirts of Seattle because the welcoming city of Seattle couldn't afford them, didn't want them, and wanted to motel them on the outskirts and affect the other parts of Kings County. But I think it's important to understand that these nonprofits essentially set these places up for failure.
An anonymous donor gave $50,000 to extend their stay at the Kent Hotel for 11 days.
So like it says in this article, they were initially backed by a mix of private donations and King County funds that ran dry. During the bitter cold weather in January, under the threat of removal from a motel that wasn't compensated, progressive housing activists transported the illegal immigrants to Seattle City Hall to demand funds to keep them housed. Mayor Bruce Harrell relented, giving them a month's worth of funding, which put them up to February. After that month ran out, that's when the $50,000 ended up coming up for this particular thing from the private donor. Now, like I said, because you can't just cover these people in perpetuity, the cost is far too high, they ended up eventually having to leave, some of them, these hotels due to the fact that they lack funds. So, like in this local news segment, what we ended up seeing was that in response to that, under the direction of these radical left-wing organizations that brought them to City Hall to terrorize members of the city council into buying them off in order to leave, they decided to move into those tennis courts in Garfield Park, which, by the way, is owned by the Seattle Public Schools. So once again, we see your kids' education, your kids' ability to exercise being subordinated to the needs, demands, and wants and desires of these illegal migrants. And it's absolutely absurd. And I understand that these people voted for this. I understand that these people supported this. I understand that these people were virtue signaling about this. But the fact of the matter is, it's still wrong for this to happen in the United States of America. And at the federal level, they should have stopped these people at the border. We need to stop admitting all of these people under what are obviously fraudulent asylum claims, especially when they pass through so many different various countries. And I don't give a damn about them holding up the Venezuelan flag and demanding things, going to City Hall and banging on the doors, making noise, making a disturbance, implied threats to members of the city council. If you engage in that behavior, you should be out of here immediately. The only benefit that you should get is a one-way plane ticket back to Venezuela, a one-way plane ticket back to Africa, a one-way plane ticket back to whatever country that you came from. Now, one of the things that is bothering a lot of people in local media is that we've kind of seen this movie before, where a group of individuals that are backed by left-wing activists end up camping in a certain area and declaring that the rules don't apply to them, and that, of course, is the Chaz/Chop situation. Now it appears like we're having that, except this is going to be done by illegal migrants, asylum fraudsters in the middle of the city of Seattle, and it appears like this is going to take forever to deal with, just like the previous one. Now, of course, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is this just desserts, well deserved, or is this the product of a national policy failure in terms of immigration, or is it both? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute disaster in Seattle. Till next time.